When I look back at my early years in game dev, almost all of my learning time went into the same stupid loop. A new project, follow a tutorial, get stuck for 1 hour, then somehow convince myself it's just smarter to start over. If this sounds like you, then we need to talk about the restart spiral. If you never escape, then you'll never release your first game. So I'll show you what worked for me to escape the restart spiral and finally made me release my first game. So you are in this same old stupid loop. You start a new project, it feels very fresh, it feels fun, it feels very like tidy. Nothing complicated because it's an empty project. Then you might have an idea of a feature you might add, and then what you do is that you go on YouTube, you search for a tutorial for that specific thing, or you might even ask AI, but let's stick to tutorials for simplicity. Then what you do is that you hit a problem that the tutorial doesn't cover. So now you're stuck, things can get messy, and instead of actually solving the problem because you really don't have the knowledge without the tutorial, you just scrap the project and you start over again. You might do this after like 1 day of working on the project, 1 week, 1 month, whatever, doesn't matter, it's the same loop anyway. And sure, it feels productive because sure, you are doing the things in your own game engine, sure, you're following the tutorial and you think you're learning from that, but you aren't actually learning from it. That's the thing. And you also don't have anything to show for it. If you keep just restarting projects, let's just set the tutorial watching and learning apart. If you just keep restarting the projects, you'll never actually build a portfolio, you never get the opportunities from being an actual game developer that publishes games. And well, you can argue that you can't even call yourself a game developer because you never made a game. And not only have you not finished any games, you also don't have the knowledge to actually like program and make your own systems without these tutorials, because when you're adding a new feature, the first thing you do is just you go on YouTube and you search for a tutorial to add that feature. You're not learning anything from that. So now you might ask, well, don't I learn anything from tutorials? And you're like scratching your head, kind of confused. But let me tell you why you fall into this trap and why you aren't actually learning anything from tutorials. Because it was only when I realized this that I actually made real progress. Even after like years of watching tutorials, I only made progress after I realized what I'm going to tell you now. So listen closely. Tutorials, that's what we call passive learning. That's where you basically just consume the steps and you don't think for yourself. So you can probably like, you know this yourself, when you're watching a tutorial, you aren't using your brain, you aren't solving any problems yourself. You're just following along the steps, you're like clicking the buttons and you're like a zombie basically, just watching and consuming. You aren't thinking, you aren't solving any problems, it's not hard. So as we said, tutorials, that's passive learning. And the thing with passive learning and watching tutorials is that it gives us an illusion of progress because, as I said, you are following along, you are actually doing something, clicking the buttons, making features, or you're not making features, but you're adding it in the game engine, and you get the result from it. So sure, it feels like you are actually doing something, feels like you're learning something because the guy on YouTube is explaining, so sure, I'll learn something. But the thing with passive learning is that you only learn to actually recognize the thing. So sure, you have it at the front of your brain, like after the guy on YouTube explains, but since you didn't struggle with the thing and actually like had to think to actually implement it, you just did it because the guy on YouTube figured it out before you. And because of that, you aren't actually going to understand it. And to actually use something practically without watching a tutorial, like actually having it in our long-term memory and be able to use it, we need to understand the thing. We can't just recognize it and just listen to like an explanation for some random guy on YouTube, and then it's going to sit in our brain forever. That's not how learning works, especially in game development. So what's happening is that you combine this passive learning from tutorials, where you feel like you're actually learning more than you actually are, with like the freshness, like the good feeling that you get from starting a new project, because it feels very clean, it feels very easy to start a new project. Like it's like resetting your entire brain. It's just like, okay, now you can start fresh start. Okay, nice, clean, fine. And I also fell for this trap myself. I have probably made like close to 100 projects in Unity. Most of them I haven't done like anything except for following along a tutorial. So putting the pieces back together, we have this illusion of progress we get from tutorials. We have this freshness we get from starting a new project. Then we combine them and we just get this comfortable, clean and easy solution. Let me tell you, when something feels both productive, like the productiveness we get from passive learning, when something feels both productive and it feels easy, well, we're going to do it. Obviously, that's just how our brain works. Our brain just loves comfortable things. So we're going to do it when like we have this combination of productivity, comfortable, it's clean, it's easy, all these things. When we combine them, our brain is going to do it. So that's why I fall into this trap. And I also just want to quickly mention that if you want to quickly just escape this loop entirely and release your first game within only 60 days, even if you are stuck in tutorials right now, then Smartini gives you this step-by-step exact blueprint to do exactly that. If you don't release within 60 days, which I promise you, I'll coach you for free. So it's going to take all the risk away from you. It's the first link in the description if that sounded interesting. Either way, let's talk about why you can't build anything yourself yet. So this is like really important for you to realize if you actually want to become a game developer and release your own games. And that's going to be that real projects, they don't have a step-by-step path you have to follow. When you make your own projects, you have to think, you have to be creative, you have to be like logical, critical. You have to actually use your brain like 100%. Once when you're watching a tutorial, you're maybe using 2% of your brain. The only thing you're like using is like the part of your brain that watches and types on the keyboard. You aren't thinking yourself, you aren't being creative, you aren't doing anything. Only thing you're doing is just consuming like a zombie. And right now, as we talked about, like these tutorials, it feels very comfortable. And you feel like confusion, that's like a bad thing. Oh no, I like actually have to think and I have to struggle with this problem. That's really bad. This is not good. I need to watch the tutorial and figure out the solution immediately, maybe ask AI. And that's like completely wrong. You have everything completely wrong if this is you. And the reason I know this is because I was this too. I also just searched for the solution immediately, asked AI, watched the tutorial immediately when I had like confusion. It doesn't feel good. And this exact mindset of like not liking tutorials, that's the exact reason why your brain just always comes back to YouTube and these easy solutions like AI, Google, and especially YouTube and tutorials. Because on there, everything just feels easy. You have this step-by-step path, feels really good, like you also feel productive. But if you do this, then you'll stay stuck in the restart spiral forever. So now you should actually have a really good understanding of how our brain learns and how our brain works in game development and why you fell into this trap in the first place. But now you need to understand and know what you can do today to get ahead of 99% of all beginners, because 99% of all beginners, they are stuck, they haven't watched this video, and they are stuck just like I was. It was only after I implemented this framework that I actually made progress and released my first game. So if you actually like do this, preferably today or tomorrow, like you start today, obviously this is something you're going to do like for weeks and months, but if you start today or tomorrow, then you're going to be ahead of 99%. So what am I talking about? This framework, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the struggle, build, repeat framework. The struggle here basically means that you have to struggle with the thing. You have to limit your external resources. You can't just immediately go on YouTube, you can't immediately go on Google, immediately go on ChatGPT. When you have a problem, you need to actually struggle with something to learn it. That's how our brain learns and actually remembers things. So now I'm going to tell you like step by step what you're going to do today. So to escape the restart spiral, what we need to do is that we need to stop being overlanded tutorials, and that starts with actually learning how to code ourselves. So to learn how to code, this is what you're going to do. The first thing you're going to do, pick one very simple mechanic that you know you can implement into the game. I know like you have watched hours of tutorial, you should probably like remember a few lines of code. I'm sure you can. You might not know what they do, but actually just try to implement a few lines of code into the game engine, like as much as you can. Preferably try to make one simple mechanic, like just move the player like constantly. That's going to be enough. You don't need input like anything, just one very simple thing that you can remember. Don't search for this, don't ask AI for this, don't watch it at all. Just something you can remember in your brain. Implement that into a new project. Then what I wanted to do with that one mechanic is that you're going to break it and tweak it for around 10 to 20 minutes with no external resources. You can even turn the Wi-Fi off on your PC if you are like really you really want to get back to tutorials. Turn the Wi-Fi off on your PC because you shouldn't need any Wi-Fi for this. Break and tweak it for around 10 to 20 minutes. Then what you can do after that, this is where you're going to just remember the line of code. You don't really know what it does. You don't really understand it, how to use it. This is where you go from just recognizing it and remembering it to actually understanding how it works like very thoroughly, because you have like tweaked everything around it. So you know how it's going to work. What happens when you do this? What happens when you do this? Just experiment with the line of code, change the parameters, change like the references inside. Just do a lot of things with it. Tweak it, break it. It can be very stupid, very small, whatever. Just do something with the lines of code. Then after you've done that for like 10 to 20 minutes, what you can do is that you can search for one very specific solution when you are stuck. So you might, for example, have a, I use this example a lot, like a simple jumping mechanic where the player just jumps continuously and then falls back down. If you have that, you can try to implement the next natural step and break and tweak something around that. But if you are stuck with trying to implement, like for example, input, then after you are like breaking and tweaking it, you can try to implement something new. Try to guess for it first, try to like just figure your way through it, basically. But if you can't do it, like you don't know how you're going to do it, like the next natural step, then what you can do is just Google the very specific thing. So for example, the mechanic you made might be, for example, a jumping system where you just jump with no input, no whatsoever. You just jump. The next natural step is going to be obviously to add input. So you jump when you press space. Try to guess and figure out the solution for 10 to 20 minutes here as well. If you can't do it, then you can search for Google. You can search for how to get player input. Don't search for how to make a jumping and get player input. Don't search for like the entire thing. Only like the very specific thing that you're going to implement. This is how you're actually going to remember things much better. If you just learn one thing at a time and you actually struggle with the thing beforehand, that's the best. You're going to remember that one thing very, very well. And then what I want to do, just expand on this one simple mechanic, this jumping system, make it like as advanced as you possibly can. Add as many things, tweak as many things, break as many things as you possibly can in this one mechanic, instead of starting a new project straight away. Just try to expand on it. Try to make like a huge script that does like a lot of things, or like multiple scripts and connect them together. Just expand. So that's like the first step that you can do today. If you want the entire process laid out step by step for you, then you can join Smartini with the first link below, and you'll release your first game within only 60 days, if that's interesting to you. Either way, thank you so much for watching this video.